Where to begin with the character of Byakuya? To many, he embodies the essence of what makes the story of Bleach truly distinctive. With his striking design, noble aura, and an underlying affectionate nature, he's solidified his place amongst the hearts of many fans. He's not just a beloved figure in the Bleach universe, he's a character whose archetype has become a staple of the genre, inspiring multiple similar characters in different anime. Most notably, Nozel Silver from Black Clover being casted in the image of Byakuya in more ways than one. It is hardly surprising that he has such immense popularity amongst Bleach fans and fans of anime in general. As a series, Bleach is known for its wide cast of characters, but despite this, Byakuya consistently stands out as one of the characters who receives the most development within the entire story. While some fans may not be too pleased with his current role within the narrative, it is hard to overlook his overall brilliance as a character. One of the aspects of Byakuya's character that I want to explore within this video is his incredible Bankai. I'll be talking about Senbonzakura Kageyoshi's range of powers, abilities, and even some of its weaknesses. Now be sure to stick around until the end of the video because I'll be discussing all of the major improvements that Byakuya received to his Bankai during the 1000-year Blood War arc, following his brief time spent within the Royal Palace. So without further delay, here is my complete explanation of Byakuya's Bankai. Kubo deserves a lot of praise for the way that he introduces Byakuya into the storyline of Bleach, as he sets him up as an unparalleled benchmark of power. Byakuya exudes an aura few antagonists in the story can match. His introduction is a defining moment within the Bleach story, and it's etched within the memory of many fans. Just as Ichigo had appeared to be gaining the upper hand over Renji, Byakuya appears like a swift shadow as he shatters Ichigo's blade and assaults him so rapidly that Ichigo is stunned, and he doesn't even have time to comprehend what on earth is going on. For the main character that we have been following, who appears to have been dominating a lot of his opponents in his previous fights, witnessing him fail so badly was both shocking and heartbreaking. This defeat establishes Byakuya as the height that Ichigo needs to reach, not just because he was stronger than him, but also because his power was the thing standing between himself and saving his friend Rukia. The more that we learnt about the Soul Society, the more we had found out about the inconceivable levels of power that captains like Byakuya possess. All of this had led to Byakuya being sold as a massive threat that nobody could stop. So when Ichigo and Byakuya finally stand on the same stage face to face, blade to blade, you just knew that this battle was going to be special. Because in addition to Kubo revealing to us Ichigo's false Bankai, we get what I believe to this day is one of the most awe-inspiring Bankais in the entire series. I am of course referring to Senbonzakura Kageyoshi. It is so impactful that it's not an understatement to say that it's become the gold standard for Bankai throughout the series. So why do I think Byakuya's Bankai is so great, and what makes it so memorable even to this day after the multiple Bankai reveals that we've had within Bleach? Well, this is exactly what I want to explore in this video. Before speaking about Byakuya's Bankai, I think it would be difficult to actualize how much of an upgrade it is to his power if we didn't first discuss his Shikai. So purely for the purposes of scale, let's briefly run over Senbonzakura's Shikai abilities. His Shikai basically splinters his Zanpakuto into 1,000 almost microscopic blades that can be controlled by the hilt of the blade, which is all that is left behind in his hand. This hilt basically plays the role of a controller for the now segmented pieces of his blade. This allows him to basically fight with his sword, but instead of a singular blade, he can now swing thousands of small blades at once. Now this power alone would create a really difficult situation for any opponent to overcome within a fight, considering the fact that Byakuya is a master swordsman with over a few centuries of experience in swordsmanship, as well as all of the previous feats which we had seen him perform. His Shikai ability makes him exceptionally more difficult to deal with. The fact that neither Renji, who was more experienced than Ichigo, and Rukia, who was just as experienced as Renji, couldn't even see him draw his sword establishes the fact that Byakuya has superhuman speed when it comes to drawing and swinging his Zanpakuto. Now if we take this into consideration and combine it with Byakuya's already imperceivable quick slashes, and add on the fact that his sword swings now control 1,000 microscopic blades, fighting him head on would be out of the question. This is demonstrated perfectly when Ganju has the misfortune of encountering Byakuya. Byakuya's Shikai slices him apart faster than he's able to tell what is happening. So in actuality, it's Byakuya's own mastery of the sword that makes his Shikai ability so dangerous, because you might be able to hold your own against a swordsman with one blade, but the conversation completely changes when you're up against a master swordsman with 1,000 at his owner's disposal. It is fundamentally a shikai that requires the owner to be a master of the sword in order to fully utilize it. These same advantages apply for Byakuya's defensive abilities also, because he's not only attacking with the force of 1,000 blades, but he's also defending with the power of 1,000 blades, giving him a perfect offense and defense. This is the exact same principle that all of his Zanpakuto abilities rely upon, but his Shikai and Bankai have one small weakness that makes them just a little bit less better. This is due to the fact that there's an ever-present risk of his own blades harming him. As such, there's a safe zone of about 85 centimeters from his own body, which places him outside of the effective range of his Zanpakuto. The outcome of most of the fights that Byakuya takes part in would be determined by the opponent's ability to not just detect this safe zone, but to also have the power and skill to capitalize upon it. It makes it so that knowing about the safe zone of his Shikai alone doesn't guarantee victory or anything remotely close to it, because as we continue to analyze his power, you're going to quickly realize that his skill with the blade is truly what makes this Shikai work, and when we go onto his Bankai, everything is enhanced to a crazy scale. Considering the terrifying capability of his Shikai, how could it evolve into an even greater threat? Well, the answer lies in Kubo's creation of Senbonzakura Kageyoshi. But before I delve into this, let's touch upon its unique activation process. While for many, activating a Bankai is as simple as uttering a word, there are, however, specific Bankai that require equally specific means of activation. Byakuya's Bankai, in my opinion, easily stands out as the most dramatic. To activate, he extends his Zanpakuto with the blade pointing downwards as he releases it afterward, as his blade then submerges into the ground, creating a watery ripple effect. Following this, massive Zanpakuto blades emerge behind him, and it's almost as though they frame him in what appears to be a mixture of absolute terror and royal pedigree. It's almost as though the blades themselves have risen from the ground in order to honor him. Each of the gigantic blades then begin to separate into the cherry blossom-like blades of his Shikai, leaving behind an absolutely beautiful scene as Byakuya stands in the midst of cherry blossoms. It is truly one of the most visually spectacular Bankai in all of Bleach. However, any opponent who is unlucky enough to face off against this Bankai wouldn't be entranced by its beauty. They'd be more concerned with its devastating power. To put this into perspective, Byakuya's Bankai drastically multiplies the number of blades from his Shikai form. You might assume, given the original count of 1,000 blades, it could perhaps double or maybe quintuple, but these estimates fall woefully short. Byakuya's Bankai doesn't merely add 10, 50, or even 100,000 blades, it escalates to an astronomical level, which is in the hundreds of millions. This dramatic augmentation signifies an exponential surge in both offensive and defensive power. Evidence of the dramatic increase in power of Byakuya's Bankai is highlighted when Ichigo in his Shikai state utilizes Getsuga Tensho, which once effortlessly had scattered the blades of Senbonzakura, but now it struggles against the formidable blade wall of Senbonzakura Kageyoshi. The increased lethality of Byakuya's blade petals in the Shikai form is very obvious, as they quickly overwhelm and wound Ichigo, even though he had the upper hand when the fight had first started. The movement of the blade petals is also exponentially faster, and surprisingly, it doesn't require Byakuya swinging his arm in order to move them, but rather he moves them telekinetically. On the other hand, when he incorporates hand motions into the control, the speed of the blades doubles, enabling him to match the speed of Ichigo's formidable Bankai. The concept of the blades accelerating with Byakuya's hand gestures does fascinate me. Now, if you recall the battle between Ichigo and Ulquiorra, as Ichigo grappled with Ulquiorra's rapid swords play, he ended up memorizing his opponent's attack patterns from when he had fought him barehanded, and I used that as his yardstick for predicting his movements. This implies that how he had swung his hands was reminiscent of how he had swung his sword. This brings me back to Senbonzakura Kageyoshi, where Byakuya's hand motions double its speed. This makes perfect sense when you look at it in that vein, because now he's essentially added the equivalent speed of his sword swings to the equation. This is a really cool detail that I feel should have played a much bigger role in the fights that Byakuya partakes in within the story. Nonetheless, I do still appreciate how Kubo had followed up on this idea hundreds of chapters later, which is really awesome. Within his Bankai form, we don't see Byakuya use that many dedicated techniques outside of him using the general blades that scatter, but in chapter 302, we see him utilize a new technique called Goke, where he surrounds Zomari with 100 million blades in a spherical formation, as he directs the blade petals to shred him from within the sphere. It's an extremely brutal technique that is dedicated towards killing the enemy as painfully as possible. One of my favorite things about Byakuya's Bankai is how it wood manages to embody incredible beauty and equally incredible brutality. This duality is an almost perfect representation of what Byakuya has become. He embodies the beauty of nobility as well as the devastating power and authority that comes with his status as a captain of the Gotei 13. And Senbonzakura Kageyoshi is a perfect power which represents his position. Now moving on, Byakuya's Bankai is actually very different. Unlike many other Bankai that simply have one ability or just one technique, Byakuya's Bankai has multiple. As the story progresses, we learn that it's a Bankai with multiple phases. There is only about 2 other Bankai that match this description, which are the Bankai forms of Yamamoto and Shunsui respectively. Now considering that these two are among some of the oldest Shinigami in the story, it leads you to wonder if there's any connection between the depth of a Bankai's power and the age of a Shinigami. Kubo has already confirmed that Shikai release commands grow longer with age, and I wonder if the depth of a Bankai is also tied to this. Now I do think that this is a topic that's worthy of its own dedicated video that I hopefully will make in the future. The next phase of Byakuya's Bankai is referred to as Senkei. He explains that this form exists as a result of him forsaking all defense and focusing solely on killing his enemy, and it's probably the most visually intimidating aspect of his power. The millions of blade fragments now condense into multiple swords that now encircle both Byakuya and his opponent. This formation resembles a deadly cage which is designed to ensure the inevitable demise of his opponent. So how is it that Byakuya fights within this formation? Well, he can telekinetically summon the swords into his hand, and he can fight with them directly or telekinetically, as he demonstrates that he can move them to stab his opponents. The condensation of the blades increases their lethality many times over, allowing him to pierce through most defenses with ease. This enables him to fight on the same level as Bankai Ichigo. This phase of his Bankai is only meant for those that Byakuya has sworn to kill. As such, there are only 2 people who have ever seen his Senkei form, with one of them being Ichigo, so this is the reason why we don't see this ability very often within the story. Now during the 1000-year Blood War arc, we get an exemplary showing of just how deadly Senkei can be. This is demonstrated through Byakuya's use of his ultimate technique, Ika Senjinka. This technique allows Byakuya to control every single one of these Senkei swords, and it allows him to shoot them at a designated target, Gilgamesh style. The attack is so deadly that it completely destroys Gerard Valkyrie's frozen hand, leaving 0 traces of it behind. I don't think I need to explain to you just how much of an incredible feat this is. This now leads us to the final phase of Byakuya's Bankai, and it just so happens to be one of the more mysterious aspects of his power. The next phase is called Shuke Hakuteiken. It's a beautiful form that condenses all of Byakuya's Bankai blades into a singular sword, which is complemented by structures on his back that evoke the image of wings and a halo. It is the ultimate form of Senbonzakura Kageyoshi, where its lethality and power are primed to the max. I'd also like to think that the wing-like structures that appear exist to enhance his speed. There isn't a lot to be said about this form because we only really see it once, which is rather disappointing because it's actually one of my favorite designs in all of Bleach. In my opinion, Hakuteiken and Ika Senjinka are 2 sides of the same coin, and they serve very different purposes. Hakuteiken is best for facing an enemy one-on-one, while Ika Senjinka is best for causing destruction on a massive scale. Basically, imagine the difference between a super drill and a missile. A drill is able to cause deeper damage, while a missile does damage on a larger surface area, but without as much depth. Byakuya's Bankai is truly an incredibly powerful inclusion within the Bleach story, and it really cements him as one of the greatest characters in the story. Now we've reached the point of the video where I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What did you think about Byakuya's Bankai form when you had first seen it? And how did you feel when you had first learnt about the different phases of Byakuya's Bankai? I look forward to reading all of your thoughts in the comments, and if there is anything that I've forgotten to mention about Byakuya's Bankai, then definitely let me know. As always, thank you for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach Explained video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.